with me if you want to live.
Kids who grew up in the 80s were spoiled with action heroes. Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Van Damme, the list goes on. But when Michael Biehn stepped on screen as Kyle Reese in the Terminator, fans thought a new legend had arrived. He had the looks, the intensity, the talent, and to be honest, better acting skills than most of his muscle-bound peers. For a moment, it felt like the birth of Hollywood's next big star. So what the heck happened to Michael Biehn? How did someone who starred in The Terminator, Aliens, and Tombstone end up fading into cult favorite status instead of A-list glory? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on Michael Biehn's rise, his struggles, and the decisions that kept him from joining the action hero elite. But his story isn't all tragedy. Because against the odds, Biehn is still here, still working, and still surprising fans in ways no one saw coming. Michael Biehn didn't grow up anywhere near Hollywood. Born in 1956 in Alabama, he spent his childhood bouncing from place to place, first Nebraska, then Arizona. At that point, acting wasn't even on his radar. His focus was basketball, not the big screen. But everything shifted when he enrolled at the University of Arizona. There, he joined the drama program and discovered a new obsession. By the time he moved to Los Angeles, he was all in, chasing the dream of becoming a serious actor, not just another handsome face. His first steps weren't glamorous. He landed tiny parts, blink and you'll miss it roles like an uncredited bit in the 1978 musical hit Grease, where John Travolta literally punches him in the stomach during the basketball scene. Then came small TV appearances and his first real starring chance in the 1981 dark mystery The Fan, opposite Hollywood legend Lauren Bacall. The movie flopped, but Biehn's intensity stood out. He had the raw talent. He just needed the right role. By the early 80s, Michael Biehn was hustling through auditions, but nothing prepared him for the script that would change his life: The Terminator. At first, though, he almost blew it. Fresh off a stage play where he'd been playing a Texan, Biehn walked into the audition reading Kyle Reese's lines with a heavy Southern drawl. James Cameron was confused, maybe even ready to pass. But something about Biehn's intensity stood out. Cameron asked him to come back and try again, but without the accent. That second audition sealed it. Cameron didn't just want a generic tough guy. He needed someone who could show both the grit of a soldier from a broken future and the vulnerability of a man who'd literally crossed time for love. Biehn nailed that balance, and his chemistry with Linda Hamilton wasn't just good, it was electric. Off-screen, Biehn admitted he fell in love with her while filming. Nothing happened. Both were married at the time, but that connection fueled their performances and made the love story believable. The result? Kyle Reese became one of sci-fi's most iconic heroes, delivering unforgettable lines.
Come with me if you want to live.
Overnight, Biehn went from struggling actor to cult hero. Fans and critics alike thought he was on track to become the next big star, especially since James Cameron clearly wasn't done with him yet. Just 2 years after The Terminator, James Cameron came calling again, this time with Aliens. But here's the twist. Michael Biehn wasn't originally cast. The role of Corporal Hicks went to actor James Remar. Filming had already begun when Remar was abruptly fired. The official reason was creative differences, but it was later revealed to be substance-related. Cameron needed a replacement fast, and Biehn was the first name that came to mind. One moment, Biehn was just chilling at home. Then 48 hours later, he was in London, suited up in full colonial marine gear, stepping onto massive sets that looked like something out of a nightmare. He didn't even get the chance to customize his combat armor the way the other actors had. Instead, Biehn let his performance speak for itself. And what a performance it was! Hicks wasn't just another trigger-happy soldier. He was calm, protective, and smart enough to trust Ripley, a rare alpha male who had no problem following a woman's lead. Sigourney Weaver later praised Biehn for bringing a rare sensitivity to the role, saying you couldn't help but fall a little in love with him. Fans agreed, and Hicks became one of the most beloved characters in the franchise. But Hollywood can be cruel. When Alien 3 came along, Hicks was unalived off-screen before the opening credits even rolled. Biehn was furious. He fought back against the studio and managed to secure a hefty payday just for using his image. Still, fans were outraged. Hicks deserved better. But Biehn wasn't done with Cameron yet. Their next project would take him deeper than ever before, literally, and reveal a darker, more dangerous side of his talent. By 1989, Michael Biehn had already played the selfless hero twice, but James Cameron wanted to flip the script. In The Abyss, Biehn wasn't the savior, he was the threat. Cast as Lieutenant Hiram Coffey, a Navy SEAL who unravels under the crushing stress of a deep-sea mission, Biehn delivered something fans hadn't seen before: pure paranoia and menace. The transformation was shocking. His eyes twitched, his voice cracked, and his character descended into madness as the pressure mounted. This wasn't Kyle Reese racing to protect Sarah Connor, or Hicks keeping calm in the face of aliens. This was a man falling apart in real time, and it proved Biehn had the range to play more than action heroes. Critics praised his performance. It was the kind of role that should have opened doors to bigger, more complex parts. But off-screen, things weren't as steady. For all his intensity on screen, Michael Biehn's real battles were happening off-camera. By the early 90s, his career should have been skyrocketing. He had 3 iconic films with James Cameron. He was memorable in Tombstone as the doomed outlaw Johnny Ringo, and even popped up in Michael Bay's The Rock. But behind the scenes, he was quietly slipping away. Biehn has been open about his struggle with the bottle. At first, it was a way to self-medicate, a way to take the edge off Hollywood's pressure. But slowly, it consumed him. Directors who once saw him as the ultimate professional began whispering that he was unpredictable, even a liability. His reputation shifted from rising star to risk. The damage didn't stop with his career. His dependency issues contributed to the breakdown of his first 2 marriages and left him with fewer allies in an industry built on relationships. Even James Cameron, the director who believed in him more than anyone, passed on casting him in his 2009 blockbuster Avatar. Fans saw it as a snub, but for Biehn, it was another reminder that his momentum had slipped away. And that was the tragedy of it all. While Schwarzenegger, Stallone, and even Bruce Willis were cashing $20 million checks, Biehn was watching the phone ring less and less. The man who survived Terminators and Aliens was losing his toughest fight yet, with himself. But his story wasn't over. Hollywood is a game of timing, and for Michael Biehn, the timing was almost never on his side. After Aliens and The Abyss, many assumed he'd climb to the same tier as Bruce Willis or Tom Cruise. Instead, the big paydays passed him by. Take Batman in 1989. Biehn was in the mix when Tim Burton was casting his caped crusader, but the role ultimately went to Michael Keaton, another near miss. Around the same time, Biehn was working steadily, but not in the blockbusters that defined an era. Instead of Die Hard or Lethal Weapon, he got projects like Navy SEALs and The Seventh Sign. Solid films, but not career makers. Even his television ventures struggled. Series like The Magnificent Seven and Adventure Inc. showed his range but were short-lived, canceled after just a couple of seasons. By the late 90s, Biehn was still a respected name, but no longer considered a bankable star. Part of that was his choice, too. He's admitted he never cared for Hollywood's game, the schmoozing, the constant hustle for the spotlight. He preferred the work itself, which meant he didn't always chase the roles that could have changed everything. While his peers were dominating the box office, Biehn was carving out a different path, one filled with near misses, smaller projects, and the kind of cult roles fans still cherish. But the real turning point came when he decided to face his demons head-on. By the 2000s, it looked like he might never walk onto a set again. But after years of battling the bottle, he made the decision to get sober. With the support of his third wife, actress Jennifer Blanc, he started to rebuild. The couple launched Blanc Biehn Productions, focusing on gritty indie projects like The Victim, a grindhouse-style thriller that Biehn wrote, directed, and starred in. It wasn't a blockbuster, but it gave him creative control and a way to stay in the game without bending to Hollywood's politics. Just as it seemed like he'd found balance, another challenge nearly derailed him. Biehn suffered a serious stroke that left him with lasting balance and coordination issues. And if that wasn't enough, he also underwent open-heart surgery, a health scare that might have ended most careers. For a while, it looked like this might be the end. But he recovered enough to step back into the spotlight, even landing a role in The Mandalorian in 2020 as the bounty hunter Lang. When he stepped back on screen, it wasn't just another role, it was a resurrection. Fans were thrilled to see him back in action, armor, weapons, and all. In 2022, he appeared in The Walking Dead, once again proving that no matter how many battles he faced off-screen, he could still command on-screen when it mattered. Michael Biehn may no longer be the unstoppable superstar of the 80s, but his survival, both personal and professional, is its own kind of victory. Today, Michael Biehn isn't chasing the spotlight. He's living life on his own terms. Financially secure thanks to his pension from the Screen Actors Guild, he's focused on family, especially raising his son with Jennifer Blanc. Instead of grinding out studio blockbusters, he takes on projects that actually interest him, often in the indie or horror space. And some of those choices are delightfully unexpected. In the 2024 horror comedy Rippy, Biehn plays an eccentric Vietnam vet who helps his niece fight off a zombie kangaroo. Not exactly the blockbusters of the 80s, but they're proof that Biehn still loves working in genre films, the same world that made him a cult icon in the first place. At this stage, Biehn seems content. He's battled dependency, survived health scares, and weathered Hollywood's fickle nature. And while he may never have reached the mega stardom of Schwarzenegger or Stallone, his characters like Kyle Reese, Corporal Hicks, and Johnny Ringo still live on in the minds of his fans. Michael Biehn's story isn't the usual Hollywood tale of non-stop success. He wasn't cashing $20 million paychecks or plastered across every magazine cover. Instead, his career was a roller coaster. Bursts of brilliance, iconic roles, and then sudden disappearances. But here's the twist. Sometimes the actors who don't make it in the traditional sense end up building the most loyal followings. Michael Biehn never played Hollywood's game. He chose family over fame, creativity over paychecks, and survival over stardom. Michael Biehn may never have been Hollywood's golden boy, but in the heart of fans, he's something more rare, unforgettable. And maybe that's the truest kind of stardom.